Welcome to Living the Spiral. This is a place to slow down, take a breath, and listen to the rhythms moving through your life. Here we explore astrology, human design, the I Ching, and elemental ancestral wheels of the year from cultures around the world. These are old maps and living languages that help us sense where we are in time, what is asking to unfold, and how we belong to something far larger than any single moment. In each episode, we trace patterns in the sky and in the body. We weave myth with lived experience, intuition with practice, and the personal with the collective. Living the Spiral is about learning how to move with change instead of pushing against it. About meeting transitions with curiosity, integrating polarities, and remembering that every season carries its own powerful wisdom. When you begin to listen to the cycles, life starts to feel more connected, more meaningful, and more alive. I'm your host, Alison Dale, and this is Living the Spiral podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Living the Spiral. How's everyone doing out there today? I am recording this on Saturday, January 17th, the day before the new moon in Capricorn. And it is a very, very powerful new moon that we have approaching here with a lot of planetary activations and lineups and geometry happening between pretty much all the planets in the sky during this moon. And so I'm definitely going to get into it in a lot of different levels. But I wanted to start out today by just inviting you, wherever you are, to just take a beat, take a moment, and find yourself in your body. And there's a lot of information flying around right now out in the world. And part of me doesn't even want to add any more words and theories to the fray because it's saturated or at a saturation point. But I'm going to anyway because it's a promise I've made to myself to record every new and full moon of the year. And I'm happy to be here with you. But let's just start out today. If you're driving, I wouldn't get too relaxed or close your eyes or anything. But if you're in a place where you can close your eyes and kind of tap off of the screen for a moment, I would invite you to either divert your gaze, soften your gaze, and look off towards the horizon or off at a wall and just kind of away from the screen, from the digital interface for a moment. You can also close your eyes if you'd like. And just invite you to take a really nice, slow, deep breath in through your nose and then release it out through your mouth. If you are driving or in motion, you can still do the breath part while taking another deep breath through your nose, into your belly, and releasing it through your mouth with a sigh. Let's do a couple more. One deep breath in through the nose, releasing it out through an open mouth with a sigh. And this last breath, take a nice deep breath in through the nose, into your belly. Hold it at the top for just a second or two. And then releasing it out through the mouth. I'm glad that I did that. I started recording this podcast a minute ago and did one take, and it was just like too much information too fast, I will say. I think there's a massive planetary lineup right now. We have the sun and moon coming together in the end of Capricorn, and we also have Mercury, Mars, Venus, Pluto, and the asteroid Vesta all there within a couple of degrees of each other between the very end of Capricorn and the very beginning of Aquarius. And when you look at a chart of this moment in time, you can really feel the potency of all of these planets being in this one part of the sky. And in addition to that, we also have all of those planets and luminaries making harmonious angles, a sextile to Saturn and Neptune at the very end of Pisces. And we also have this new moon and these planets making a trine to Uranus at the very end of Taurus. And so all together, these planets, the inner planets that are all clustered together, are making a mini triangle, a magic triangle, as it's called, or a mini grand trine with the other outer planets, with Uranus, Saturn, and Neptune. And so all of these planets are connected to each other in this beautiful triangle web. And all of these inner planets, all of the closest ones to the sun, are clustered together in gate 60, which is the gate of limitation or the gate of acceptance in human design. And it is this energy of completion. It's the energy of, I like to see it as like the very last day of a pregnancy before the contractions begin to start to birth a new world. And so that's some pretty serious stuff. This is pretty powerful. And Pluto and Vesta, who are close to these planets, are in Aquarius. And they're in the first degrees of Aquarius at 3 degrees Aquarius. And they are in gate 41, which is known as the gate of contraction. So, gate 41, if you're into human design, you might recognize as the gate of the Rave New Year or the Human Design New Year. And that is the time within the wheel of the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, the wheel of the 64 gates or gene keys. That is the time when the new year begins. And the reason that is because gate 41 is correlated with the start codon in the DNA, in the 64 codons of the DNA sequence. And it is the one gate that codes for the beginning of building proteins, starting of a new cycle. And so that is why it is the Rave New Year. That's coming up next week on January 22nd, so very soon. And I will be recording a podcast specifically about Gate 41 and the Rave New Year, because we are going to be feeling it. All of these inner planets and the luminaries, the moon, the sun, Venus, Mercury, and Mars will all be passing through gate 41 and meeting up with Pluto, the lord of the underworld, Lord Hades, at the gate of this new year. So if things feel incredibly charged right now in your body, in your world, in the larger world, I can't imagine that anywhere that you're listening to this, you're not affected by the everythingness that is going on. This is in the sky. It's kind of telling a story about why. And we'll try to get into that a little bit today without making too many conclusions, kind of being open to possibilities. But looking at this chart, you can see a visual of the chart on Substack at livingthespiral.com. If you're listening to this, you can always find additional resources on my Substack to put more pictures and just kind of additional writings and transcripts on the Substack. So if you'd like to see that there, you can always subscribe and get it in your inbox on every full and new moon. Wherever you are listening, thank you for being here. And yeah, please like, share, star, heart, do all of the activities to help this get out to the larger audiences in the larger world. I deeply appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit with me and hear the reverberations of my voice. Because right now, I definitely, on a personal note, I've been kind of off and on sick since the full moon in Cancer 2 weeks ago. And it's been really interesting because it's felt like I was talking a lot about new year, new you, like how we don't have to abide by the active resolutions of the new year, but that it is a good time in Capricorn season to start to strategize, start to kind of get your ducks in a row on an internal level about what the rest of the year wants to look like, because there will be more action coming into play than there even currently is, entering the year of the fire horse from the year of the wood snake in February, having that conjunction of Saturn and Neptune moving into Aries in February. We're moving into fire and air energy out of water and earth energy. And so we will be feeling that action is the name of the game. So in my year ahead forecast, I did encourage folks to, take January to rest as much as possible and go inward and strategize and feel into the mystery that is unfolding within you. And it's funny because I might not have done that, but my body was like, yeah, you're doing that, because I got first a stomach bug and then a kind of respiratory thing. And then I have had a toothache and had to have some dental work and fillings. And it's just been kind of one thing after another. And with all these planets moving through Capricorn, I have Capricorn in my 6th house, which is the house that's naturally ruled by Virgo, and it's kind of about our day-to-day routines and our health. And so I have felt that with all these planets in Capricorn, my health has been struggling a little bit or been activated. But I do like to think of the Capricorn season and the early parts of the Gregorian year as a time of dormancy. It's the time in the wheel of the year when the seeds in the ground are dormant. They are not doing anything, but they're doing a lot internally. Because they're dormant externally and they're not growing and they're not doing and they're not moving, they're still. That is a time when a lot of internal kind of hormonal shifts can happen that are required for growth, new growth to happen. So I feel like my body, I was talking about that a lot over the past couple of shows, and then my body was like, "Oh, dormancy, huh? That's what we're doing." So it has been a lot of laying in bed, making fires and sitting by the fire, taking Epsom salt baths. And for some reason, I haven't let it get me down. I've been sick, but I have allowed that to be like, okay, body is in a dormant place. It's not able to move very fast or exercise or do the things I normally like to do, but it is allowing me to have some internal shifts and internal conversations, embracing the mysteries that are happening within me on a very profound level. And I feel like I'm coming out of that and entering into a little bit more of a growth embodied phase right now. And I'm just finding some gratitude for even being sick, for getting to this place of being able to slow down enough to go really deep. I started a ancestral healing course with Daniel Four in around the same time in the beginning of the year. So I've been going on these deep dives into my ancestry and got a whole box of paperwork from my parents about the ancestral research that their families had done. And then I've been just looking online and looking at pictures of where my ancestors have come from going way back. And that just really opened up this, you kind of unlocked a desire to know more about the mysteries of humanity, of the evolution of kind of all of my ancestors, and how they intersected with other ancestors across the world. And it led me into a deep, deep investigation into world religions in a way that I really had never followed these threads. And I've been and then I got into evolution and biology and have gone on a lot of tangents, whatever's sparked my interest. And I have a couple of book outlines now, like ready to go. I've been writing a few Substack posts in the meantime between the full and new moon as well, where I've pulled in kind of just my thoughts about the astrological ages, being at the end of the age of Pisces right now, beginning of the age of Aquarius, and really feeling that this shift that we're all noticing and it's impossible to turn away from with, AI and just the new world being very much in our faces. It's been something that I've been trying to kind of put a finger on the pulse of, like, the larger arc of that story. So I invite you to check out the Substack. There's a couple of articles that I've written, and there's a bunch more waiting in the wings now, because I've been on this tangent. So that leads me into this moon, and it feels very appropriate that gate 60, the gate of limitation or the gate of acceptance, is at the very end of Capricorn. It's at the end of this stage of dormancy before we enter Aquarius, which is more about, I think of Aquarius as like mycelial aeration of the soil through mycelial roots and fungi and just whatever is happening before the new seed can sprout. There needs to be an aeration. And so Aquarius is this connective, networked air sign that we are about to feel a lot of energy in over the next month with the sun entering Aquarius, but also all these other planets entering Aquarius. And so for now, we're at this very, very end of the dormant phase at the structure of Capricorn. And Capricorn is a sign that's ruled by Saturn. And Saturn is this planet that relates to boundaries, that relates to structures, that relates to kind of daddy energy, big daddy energy, to hierarchy, Saturn was the outermost planet of the solar system. It's the outermost visible planet before we had telescopes to look further out into space. Saturn marked the boundary of time. So Saturn is known as the Lord of Time, the Lord of Karma, and Capricorn, the sea goat, very much embodies that structure, that ambition, that desire to kind of keep going in the face of a harsh winter, to create strategy. And I was doing a breathwork session, my monthly zodiac breathwork session with my group of people who show up. Hello, everyone. So nice to have you continuing to come every month. But we were talking about how Capricorn energy we always think about the goat, the energy of that kind of fortitude of the mountain goat, right? But then there's also the fish part of the goat, the fish tail that relates to the deep mysteries of the waters. And I think it's a very important part of Capricorn to include because there is a lot of connection to the great mystery within this season of dormancy. There's not just okay, I gotta make it through, work hard, one foot in front of the other. Although that's there's also the deeper reason why you would continue to work so hard to get to the top of the mountain. It's because you know the mysteries of the deep, and you're also witnessing the mysteries of the sky above and connecting the two together, saying, I've been in the oceans. I understand my forefathers were a fish, and here I am making my way to the top of the peak, because what's up there? Oh yeah, the stars, the constellations, the expansive vistas where you can see all of the other mountains and all of the seas and the curve of the earth and really know your place within it all. And so that is something that in this season of dormancy, we're doing on an internal level. So Capricorn being both the fish and the goat and having this connection to the great mystery, it's really interesting to look through the human design gates that are within Capricorn season, the I Ching hexagrams that lie on the wheel within Capricorn season, because we have the gate of ambition. We have gates that are very connected to that kind of capitalistic idea of what Capricorn symbolizes. But we also have the gate of mystery, and that is the gate that we are coming out of as we enter this new moon. All of the inner planets were in gate 61, which is the gate of mystery. And it is this beautiful energy of connecting to our inner wisdom and the outer wisdom of the universal realm. And so we've been in that, and I very much feel that. And now we're entering gate 60, which is the gate of limitation, kind of recognizing. Another way I look at limitation is it's that womb energy, that pregnant womb that's about to go into contractions. But it's also about kind of recognizing the force of gravity, like the sea goat makes his way to the top of the mountain and then gets to the top of the mountain, sees the great mystery, connects it to this universal experience of being a fish or a single-celled organism in the primordial sea. And it's all connected, right? It's like the future and the past, and it's just the mystery is there. But then what do you do about it? You're on the top of this peak, the tip of the pyramid, and you can't and you're being held down by gravity. You're looking out at all the mystery, but you still are limited by your body, by the laws of the natural world, like gravity. And to me, that's always just been this really beautiful way of visualizing the end of Capricorn and the beginning of Aquarius, because Aquarius is aeration. Aquarius is the atmosphere. Aquarius is the innovation that allows us to kind of transcend these laws, these existing natural laws of our bodies and of gravity. But before we can even begin to create innovation that starts something new and have those contractions of new energy coming in, before we can grow wings and fly from one mountain peak to another, we have to recognize the limitations of natural law, of gravity, of embodiment of the fact that we can access mystery, but not necessarily live into that mystery in the exact same moment. And so that's how I see gate 60, where we find ourselves at this new moon, is that final Capricorn evolution of having reached the top of the peak, having reached the end of gestation of in the womb, and saying, okay, there's really nowhere else to go from this, and something has to happen. There has to be a spark or an impulse. Same thing with the seed. The seed reaches this place of dormancy where it can no longer stay dormant. There's that spark of something else happening as the roots start to grow to aerate the soil. There's always going to be, and it's magic. Like this point of the new year, why does a contraction start when you're in pregnancy? It's not predictable. You don't know exactly when it's going to happen. Like, when is the root going to grow out of the seed? Can't quite predict that. When is the sea goat going to sprout wings and fly up into space? Also unpredictable, right? So here we are. We are at the precipice. We're at the end of the 64 gates in the wheel of the human design mandala. We're at this crux between the earthy Saturnian sign of Capricorn and the airy Saturnian sign, or Uranian sign, if you're a modern astrologer, of Aquarius. Like, Aquarius is still ruled by Saturn in the ancient times in traditional astrology, but it is like the structure of the aquifers, the structure of the networks and nodes, rather than the structure of like a mountain or a building. So yeah, here we go. I mean, it's a potent time. I will say that, the potent time. And yeah, so that's why we needed to take a breath, and I'm glad we did. And at any time during this, I welcome you to just tap back into that breath. I think it's so important to remember our bodies in highly saturated times like these. Like, I've talked about this in my year ahead forecast as well, but having been pregnant, I now have a 7-year-old. And so it's been a while, but I still remember it like it was yesterday, reaching that point of it being so much, like your organs can no longer fit in your body. This, you're growing this new being. You don't know what they look like. You don't know who they're going to be, but you are responsible for containing and nurturing this other being. And it can be uncomfortable to be at that precipice. It can be very, very uncomfortable. It's not just like all systems go. You're having to sit with the fullness, knowing that a whole new phase of life and a whole new being is coming into the world. And that is the energy that we're in this new moon. It's a culmination energy. And that's interesting because new moons most of the time are about new beginnings in the lunar cycle. They are all about kind of starting fresh, starting from the darkness, starting from the void, and growing into fullness. And so we have this ending and beginning at the same time kind of energy, this anticipation. And it's also coming off of the full moon in Cancer, of the last moon that we had, which was highly emotional. It was the gate of provocation. So it was about really provoking that dichotomy between like mother-father energy, like homeland and expansion, between all of these things. And it sparked a lot of emotions that were flowing through and still are. But this Capricorn, with everything concentrated in Capricorn, in this gate of limitation, of recognizing our limitations, we are now asked to kind of consolidate the feelings, be really real with them, put them into a container, and say, okay, this container isn't necessarily a constraint. It's not something that's keeping me from doing something, but it's building up enough charge, enough electricity for the next thing to be able to happen. And that's something that really inspires me when I think of the gate of limitation, when I think of this last gate of Capricorn, is that in order to have the next have a being, or the next world, the next ideology birthed into the realm, something that's never been here before, there has to be kind of tension and pressure built in order to create enough electricity, to create enough charge for that spark to happen for the next part of the cycle. And so this container before the new beginning is just, it's for me in my in my deep kind of dormant, sick deep dives into the mystery, I started seeing evidence of this, of the magic of the container everywhere. And of course, being an embodied person, the womb was one place, because I've just been very nostalgic about that process of birth and pregnancy and like how trippy that whole thing is. But also I've been thinking a lot about the heart. I've been posting a lot about the heart and really feeling into heart coherent breathing, where it's a slow breathing technique that kind of lines up and synchronizes your heart and your lungs with your nervous system and kind of can put you into a beautifully relaxed and parasympathetic state. And so I feel like the heart is another one of those where we have blood running through from all these different places, and it gets to this place in the heart, this container, and then a beat will pump it through. It's this spiralic kind of energy that has to be held and then moved through. So it has a similar energy to the womb. I've also been doing a lot of research into Egyptology and the Great Pyramids. We have a huge, like 7-minute long total eclipse of the sun in Egypt in 2027 in August. And I was looking at maybe potentially trying to go there. I've been really drawn to Egypt, but I've been doing a lot of research. And, once you get into Egyptology, it's like the realm of conspiracy theories is just rampant. But I'm all about it. I feel like I can hold that energy without it derailing me at this point in my life. And just some powerful information about the pyramids being these containers for the energy of the Nile as it flooded. The Nile was very close to the Great Pyramid back when they were built, and there are chambers underneath the pyramid where the Nile would flood and put electrical pressure into this pyramid shape. And to me, that felt very Gate 60. It was very coded with this idea of having the container that gets full, and then like maybe they were a power plant, maybe the Great Pyramids, they definitely weren't like tombs for mummies. That's been proven, but there was some other technology within these pyramids that is yet to be confirmed, but definitely had to do with the Nile. And the new year in Egypt was when Sirius's heliacal rising happened in the summer, which was when Sirius, the star, the bright dog star, would rise. And that was when the Nile would flood. And if the Nile was so close to these underground chambers of the pyramids, that would have been a time of activating kind of that spark, that new potential energy. So that to me felt really like just so fascinating. And I've looked into the Isis and Osiris myth, and Isis was related to Sirius. And so the waters of Isis, she was like the goddess of the Nile and the rising of the Nile and fertility that would kind of resurrect Osiris, the hunter, who is Orion in the sky. And that would kind of create this something to happen. So cool stuff. Definitely going to write more about that specifically in a bit, because I'm like, Isis and Osiris myth, so cool, so interesting. But I digress. It's just kind of related to Gate 60, related to that confinement of needing a place for that energy to build up before something new can emerge. And started getting into biology, like into the evolution of cells. And bear with me, you can tell I've been in the deep mystery, definitely on a bit of a like tangential rant, but it all relates to each other, I promise. But yeah, mitochondria are these like, organelles within the cell, within all of our cells, that create energy. And the theory with mitochondria is that they used to be single-celled organisms that invaded or were kind of enveloped by another cell in order to create eukaryotic cells that then created all the rest of life on this planet. But mitochondria are really an amazing powerhouse organelle within the cell, and they're related to mitochondrial Eve. They're related to female genetics, like being able to trace the female genetic line all the way back in this continuity through the past. But mitochondria are this biological structure that has a double membrane. They have a kind of like outer membrane and then an inner membrane that is able to create that charge of ATP, creating energy within the whole cell by having a container around it. It's like the womb, it's like the pyramid. It's like there is this container around it that allows the energy to, the limitation of that structure allows the energy to build so that the networked, interconnected spark of new structure can emerge. So just really, really cool stuff. I've also been researching a lot about the Abrahamic religious traditions and the Ark of the Covenant being this, beautiful box essentially where the Ten Commandments are held and where the Solomon's temple was created to hold. And the Ark of the Covenant, you might remember it from Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones movie, or from your religious upbringing, either one. But it's this incredible box that is said to contain great power of God inside the box. And it's another one of those things that's related to the 60 and the 41. It's related to the having to have a container, having to have limitations surrounding infinite power. And that's the only way to really interface with it or to build the charge up. So really, so just a few examples of how this shows up in history and in biology and in, your life. It's all pretty cool. So, for me, gate 60, where the new moon is kind of accepting for you in this moment, with all those symbols and metaphors aside. It's accepting kind of that you're in a period of being limited by something, but taking a moment, taking the beat here with the breath to appreciate how that limitation nurtures you. The womb is a nurturing place. The pyramid is a nurturing place. These containers might feel limiting at this point. The container of our current society, even, or of our current phase in evolution, like the whole globe, it just might feel like there's just too much, right? It's like, whoa, there's no room to breathe. There's no room for digestion to happen. And I think that's why a lot of us are getting sick right now, is that we're so inundated with the new thing that is coming through, and just the unbelievableness of everything that's happening on a daily basis, that especially if we're deep in consuming that information digitally through reels or whatever, but also if you're just alive at this moment in time, we're feeling the constraints of the old world, the way things have been, in a big way. And something has got to give. It's that kind of energy. So remembering to try to breathe, when you're 40 weeks pregnant and you're about to have a baby, like pretty much all you can and should do is not try to predict what the baby's going to look like exactly or be like for its whole next life, but to breathe through it, to find your heart, to, get as much rest as you possibly can. And that feels like perhaps counterintuitive. But if you think about it as like this sea goat that has been on this crazy long journey and has reached the top of the mountain, then you're going to rest once you get to the top of the mountain before you start to go down and up to the next one, or before you grow those wings and fly. You're going to take a beat. You're going to need a moment to just wait and to just consolidate and to rest, because inevitably you will be called into action soon. That is just the fact of the matter. So new moons are a great time to take baths, to go on walks in nature, to put your hands in the dirt, to do some breath work, to get into your body. New moons always have this manifestation component, this kind of like planting a seed, but you don't know what that seed is going to become. And so this is kind of just like times a million. As far as all of the alignments of planets that are happening right now, it's just saying like, yeah, we're at maximum capacity and we have gravity at its maximum strength from the top of the mountain pulling us down into the sea. And so we need to just acknowledge that that is true and give yourself a break, cut yourself a break for not knowing what's going to come next or what you're going to do next or what's going to happen in the world next, because we are still in the darkness of the womb right now for a little bit longer. And so just work with that energy. I think, the next gate, the first full gate of Aquarius, gate 41, that catalyzes the new year in human design, is going to bring new energy very soon. So if you're listening to this on Sunday or Saturday, when the new moon is at its peak, I would say, yeah, give yourself some more of these breaths if you can. Give yourself some rest. Give yourself, that like a consolidation of the strategies that you've been coming up with. It is a really good new moon for manifestations, for like writing out your desires, because we've been going through such an emotional portal since the beginning of the year that I'm sure lots of epiphanies have been coming to you. For me, 100%, like, whoa, popping off, just like, oh my goodness. We had the Kazimis of Mars and Venus happening over the last couple of weeks. We had every one of those inner planets making a square to Chiron, which was like activating like deeper wounding and kind of like how we can heal our own wounds. So through the course of the past 2 weeks since the full moon, there's been a lot of charge building and a lot of new insights coming through in our bodies and minds. And I posted about that somewhere on Instagram or Substack, and I got a lot of responses, a lot of DMs from people, and a lot of comments that were like, oh my God, yes, I have been having the craziest dreams and just having stuff come through in this really channeled kind of way. And 100%, that has been my experience. So this new moon is a time to like let it land, take the pause before you move on, to really distill. Like I wrote an entire outline of a book this morning that just kind of all came through within the last couple weeks. And I'm so excited I'm so excited to share it with you guys, because it's just like, it's all the things and it's actionable, and it's kind of just talking about how we can embrace this transition moment that we're all in collectively and on an embodied level. So stay tuned. It's definitely landing in this new moon portal. But that would be what I would say here is you're in a compression chamber. Let everything come together and congeal, because the spark will catch soon and it will be put into action, kind of whether we like it or not. That's just where we're at in the skies in the astrology right now. So yeah, feel this in your body. Like there's a need to simplify, a biological need to just close the loops. There's been a lot of open-ended kind of conversations or relationships. This new moon is a really great time to kind of bring it all, pack it all in to a little clay ball, rather than having a lots of different tangents. And that might feel extra challenging because there have been a lot of tangents lately, a lot of paths to follow, and there will be in the future. So this is just like this beautiful moment to appreciate what a limitation can do for you. Like what the boundaries of a bank can do for a river. It's not you contain the flood and make this beautiful flowing river that can nurture so much and create so much energy, but it needs the banks to contain the infinite. And so this new moon is all about creating the banks around your river and fortifying them and bringing it all together. So yeah, I'd say if the word limitation kind of irks you or gets under your skin, I get that. I think Gate 60 can have kind of a bad reputation because the word limitation can bring up old conditioning and authority issues and stories about being boxed in. Like nobody wants to be boxed in. Like, don't put me in a box. I've heard that throughout my life, and I've felt that. And so that is the shadow of being like, "Well, I guess we're always gonna be limited to what is, like, this is just how it is," and that is a real feeling, and you can honor that and just be like, "I don't like the word limitation," you know? I don't like feeling like I have to settle or accept anything, even gravity, even, like, the containers of a river or a womb, like, I don't want it. But I think the truth here within this new moon is recognizing that limitation without a rim, a bowl cannot hold water, and that flooded river without banks becomes a swamp, and so limitation is like it's sacred technology. It makes something usable and creates structures for life. And Capricorn is the sign that understands that sacred technology of structure better than any other sign. Time and consequence and containers are all within Capricorn's realm. And so Gate 60 can feel really practical in that way, like cut the bullshit kind of energy, like no time for extraneous, like you can't add on any more new limbs to the being that's already formed. It's like it's there already. And in the human design body graph, gate 60 is in the root center, which is the very bottom center of the body graph. It's a pressure center, and it's like the pressure that rises from the ground of the body and demands a change in the conditions. And so when the conditions do change, mutation is possible. So gate 60 in this way in the body graph is tied to that mutation dynamic. And it's just that feeling of enoughness when any old way of doing things just feels too pressurized to continue, like something's got to give. So I think that it is something to really sit with here. In the gene keys, the shadow is limitation and that feeling of confinement, but it moves to the gift of realism. And again, realism can sound kind of like womp womp, like, like a lot of people I know who are actual pessimists will say they're realists. They're like, I'm not a pessimist, I'm just a realist kind of energy. That's something I've heard in my life a lot. And I've always been like anti that. I'm like, no, you can't. That's not the opposite of optimism, is realism. There is the way you look at something. And in the gene keys, realism is just getting past the fantasy for a moment and recognizing how boundaries can nourish us. That is real. It's like we all want to be free and we all want to be infinite and we all want to be like transcendent of our bodies, but like our bodies themselves are boundaries. Our skin is a boundary to the rest of the world, and it's the thing that keeps us alive. And so it's just like, yes, pay reverence to it and let realism be realism and not pessimism either. In the city of the gene keys is justice, and that's really interesting too because yeah, I've had to sit with that a little bit. Like, how is justice related to limitation, and how is justice related to realism in this way? And I do think that it's more of a divine justice idea, an idea that like surrendering to the reality of the current moment allows for the new spark to emerge. But if we're continuing to fight against that reality, we're like prolonging the existing infrastructure, and that's something that I don't want to be taken the wrong way. But there's something about justice, divine justice being like the cycle of time that completes one and turns into the next, kind of against all odds. It's a surprising change that nobody might expect. So it's not having false hopes for just something naturally to change without our effort. But there is, at this very moment, a little bit of that surrendering to the larger cusps rather than continuing to just like butt heads with the notion that a limitation does exist. So justice, something to contemplate during this time. In the I Ching, hexagram 60 is known as Jie, and it means limitation, restraint, or regulation. And again, this is about the necessity of boundaries for focus, moderation, and channeling energy. And the trigrams that make up the hexagram are water over lake. kan over dwe. And water and lake, if you just have that image right there of a lake with more water kind of overflowing it. So this is about mastering overflowing potential. Like there is a great flood around us, and we have to build those banks to the river. And we have to do that consciously, not just creating rigid rules, but setting conscious limits. And it's really all about boundaries, like creating that cellular membrane so the energy can build. So if you've been feeling in your life a need lately to create more boundaries relationally, to understand that boundaries aren't barricades, but they're just protective membranes. They're places where you can feel contained and safe and allow your own energy to grow without having to constantly be filtering out something. It's like that's what a boundary is like a place where you and another meet. And sometimes you need to make that boundary a little bit further out. And I've definitely been doing that in my life lately, just kind of subconsciously through sickness. It's allowed me to say no more to invitations than I normally would. And it's been very helpful to allow my own mystery to be understood and what's going on inside me to be understood by not being like waking up and being like, oh God, I have to respond to that thing, or I have to I'm anticipating that I'm going to have to interact with this person. It's been like, no, I'm just going to give myself I can't right now, the no limit. So I think that that's super, super interesting when it comes to the I Ching and water over a lake. On Divination Foundation, which is an I Ching website, they say about this gate that limits are necessary to channel energy, guide purpose, and lend direction to life. Constantly swimming in a sea of boundless opportunity leads to exhaustion. Winging it alone, wild and free, in a sky of unlimited directions and opportunities, only leads to becoming lost. In human affairs, the making of decisions and alliances necessarily implies limitation, for in choosing one path, another must be left behind. Ain't that the truth? They also go on to say that a key to successful life is to select your limits consciously and carefully, to be discriminating in the setting of personal boundaries, but also knowing when to fly in formation. Just as thrift often precedes prosperity, letting go of selfish interests leads to greater personal reward. Only by consciously accepting useful limits can your energy be channeled to good purpose and lead to lasting accomplishment. So there's this discipline there, this Capricornian discipline, right? But it's not like harsh, like I just got to keep plodding ahead. It's like restful discipline. It's boundaried, it's nourishing discipline. And I think that there's a way to aim for the middle path between discipline and the freedom of spirit, knowing that if you're making the decisions for your own boundaries and then selecting only allow the mitochondrial double membrane, the first membrane's porous, it allows everything to come in, but the second membrane is very discriminating, and it's actually can't let that in or else I'm gonna spin out and lose my center kind of thing. So we will be able to learn how to fly and be able to learn how to use our energy when we have good boundaries that are not so firm and strong that they're choking off our life force. So it is this double membrane, have some permeability and then recognize when no is no. So pretty cool, pretty interesting stuff. I think it's fascinating that we're so focused on this idea of creating a container that can hold water, like the idea of a cup needs a rim, it needs a lip, and the river needs a bank, and the womb holding, the waters of life needs to have a boundary around it. It's very much about this kind of containment of water. And at this point in the geopolitical realm, there is so much to do with containment of water, with who owns the water. And I think that that's something that I've really turned my attention to lately. I'm not going to get too political here on this podcast, but it's been something that's really taken a lot of my attention to look at where conflict is happening on this earth right now in a big way, which includes Gaza, which includes Minneapolis and Minnesota, and which includes Venezuela, which includes Greenland, which includes today there was an agreement between the president of Egypt and President Trump about using the Nile, essentially having access to the Nile. So going back to the Egypt stuff, if you look in the news and filter your research and news consumption based on water rights right now, it is top of mind. It's really something that I want to bring to attention because I don't think it's being talked about enough in the fray of why. We're talking a lot about oil. Oil is certainly similar to water in the sense of being a fluid resource that supports us, but I do feel like fresh water is the next frontier. That's hard to even grok how rare it is. Recently, BlackRock, the massive corporation, has taken control of the boundary waters between the US and the Canada up in northern Minnesota and are looking to start some mining, their copper mining with this Chilean company that would really just contaminate and destroy the fresh water. And it's 20% of the United States or maybe North America's fresh water. And then the Great Lakes nearby are 20% of the world's fresh water. And that is definitely a frontier that feels like, why Minnesota? What's going on? But to me, I think you trace the resources, you trace the water, and it leads to that. So we have the Nile deal, we have the Minnesota water it's all in process right now. Venezuela also has a ton of fresh water and precious minerals, but some really powerful bodies of water. There's this lightning lake in Venezuela that has like a lot of lightning storms. So it's kind of hydroelectric power related to water. A lot of stuff, a lot of threads that I've followed in my deep mystery research lately has been focused on water and on containment of water. Who owns the water? Who controls the water? And so this is just another level to think about reverence for the water and reverence for the lakes and the rivers and the places that contain fresh water and sending them your love, sending the bodies of water as much of your heart energy as you possibly can right now. It seems like a small ask, seems like a small thing, but that's where I've figured in the scheme of things, it feels important to honor this kind of yin field, the feminine, the waters and the oil, the fluids that support us and nurture us, and recognizing that they cannot be contained by any one billionaire. There are multilateral agreements happening to kind of try to share that, but we're at this cusp in evolutionary history right now, I believe, that is kind of showing us the true limitations of extraction economies. We have fracked all we can frack, right? There's not much more fracking to do. We have tried to extract for so long. Humans have been extracting oil and extracting waters and drilling and mining for so long. And it's time to recognize the limitations of that process. That's not sustainable. It's going to destroy everything. And so it's like another way to look at limitation. It's like, that's enough is enough, right? That's where we're at. And I think collectively, how we go about saying that or enacting the enough is enoughness, whether it's being out on the streets, whether it's continuing to share information, whatever it is, everybody's got a role in this. But there also is, I think, an underlying force that is greater than an individual human or even a group of humans, that is Gaia, perhaps. It's the great Earth Mother that's saying enough is enough. We cannot continue to extract in these ways anymore. And so that is, on a personal level, send your heart to the waters and also give yourself some rest, both of which feel like small and difficult things to do in the midst of everything. But it's how we can be interacting with this on a personal level. And, in some ways we have to just notice where we're trying to over scroll or over plan or over promise and be like, oh, this feels like freedom because I'm doing all the things. I've got my fingers in a lot of pots. But this new moon, this gate 60, is bringing it back to your own capacity. And it's okay if all you can do right now is rest. If you're sick, if you have a terrible toothache like I did, that is what you can do. That's all you can do. But by recognizing that and accepting that, the new will come out of that. I guarantee it. I think I've said as much as, like, I can possibly say about this. I think you probably get the point, but just knowing that this new moon is conjunct a cluster of the inner planets, which Venus, Mars, and Mercury all in 60. So it turns this theme from just a passing thing into like a longer lasting experience. And Mercury, Mars, and Venus close by. Mercury is the planet of communication, kind of the messenger between worlds. Mars is a planet of action and drive and sexuality and assertion. Venus is a planet of what we value and harmony, and the Great Mother. And Venus, Mars, and Mercury all together really um, help consolidate the way we communicate with our agency, with our value season or value systems, all in the same place, looking at the same problem and getting ready to make a decision that sticks and that is ready to be catalyzed. So that's pretty wild. Venus is already in Aquarius at the very beginning, first degree, during this new moon, but it's still in gate 60 because gate 60 overlaps into Aquarius a little ways from Capricorn. And then a couple degrees away from that, Pluto and Vesta are in gate 41 at 3 degrees Aquarius. And that's where we're going to really get into that next week and talking about the Rave New Year, Gate 41, the contractions, the decrease that happens before the increase. And it just feels like this new moon is a hinge into the future because Pluto and Vesta being conjunct in gate 41 are going to be activating with this contraction type of like the new world is beginning, y'all. Like this kind of energy is going to be activated starting right away when the moon moves into 41, then Venus and the sun. And so we have this new moon and inner planet cluster working gate 60 territory about containment and measure and the womb and limitations and rest. We already have at the same time Pluto and Vesta, so the lord of the underworld, and Vesta, who is the asteroid goddess of what we're devoted to, like devotion. Both of them are standing in gate 41's field where that rest turns into contraction, turns into imaginal, like the imaginal cell of the butterflies, the caterpillars turning into the butterfly. It's like goes from the goo into like, oh, now this is becoming a wing, and now this is becoming an antenna. Like the imagination, there's like pure potentiality is turning into something. So we have that to look forward to. And this is the evolution from Capricorn to Aquarius, where Capricorn is refining and accepting the structure of the mountain of the womb. And Aquarius is receiving the signal from the skies above that wants to travel forward and outward and into a larger network, a wider horizon. So in this new moon portal, I'd say stop leaking your energy, consolidate, create your manifesto. If you're me, you're going to do that. But just give yourself some breath, some stillness, so that you have enough energy for that, for the contractions to begin and for the imaginal cells to start differentiating. And just know that this limitation is not the ending, it's the preparation for a new beginning, and that the container exists here so that the new can emerge. So, final thing I'll say is that these supportive aspects of the trine to Uranus and the sextile to Neptune and Saturn are hopefully giving a bit of a pyramidic kind of triangular structure. We're not being pulled in an opposition. We're not being challenged by a square, but we have flowing energy, supportive energy to these outer planets. And Neptune is in gate 25. That's all about universal love. So it's kind of about the innocence of universal love, of the new beginning. It's the spring equinox gate. And then Uranus is in gate 8. That's all about contribution, how we contribute to the world, and how we are originally our own selves, that by being ourselves, we can contribute to the greater picture. So universal love and contribution are being kind of harmoniously activated by this gate of limitation. So that's definitely something else to bring into the fold here, because it's a beautiful configuration that's happening right now. And I recommend working with that. So I'd say as a final, I keep saying final and then I'm not done, but we're getting close here. I'd say how to work with this new moon would be planting a seed for one container for the next month that you can come back to as the contractions of Aquarius season and Pluto in Aquarius, particularly activating all these planets. There will be some upheaval. There will be some shadows shown that we cannot even imagine. Like Pluto is the flashlight into the basement. You're like, whoa, what is down there? And so all of the inner planets hitting Pluto is going to be exposure of shadows and the dirt that's down below. But remember that the riches are also down there. Pluto is also the lord of gold, because the finest minerals, the finest metals exist in deep down in the earth. And so you're going to see dirt, you're going to see muck, and you're going to see gold, all of it through engaging with Pluto in this deeper level. But I'd say sometimes that's a lot on our nervous system. Discover new things that we didn't know before. So I'd say in this new moon portal over the next week, pick a container for the next 4 weeks, like a creative project or one income focus or one health practice, one relationship repair thread that you can come back to as a container for holding the energies that are coming through, and create boundaries around that. Say that for the next 4 weeks, I'm available for this and I'm not available for this, and stick to that. Just really hold your energy and set that intention on the new moon if you can. I'd say also a good thing to do is a leak audit. It's something that I have started to do a little bit more, kind of like a retrospective of the past week or so. Like, what have I done? Like, where have I lost my energy to tiny decisions or to energy vampires of some kind, to people pleasing? Where am I losing my money to convenience? And it's time to just like pick one of the ways that like your energy or your time or your money is leaking out and patch it up with one simple boundary. And that can be related to the first one, the container that you're creating about what you're available for and what you're not. And I'd say another thing to do would be build a small repeating structure. 60 really is an energy of loving the smallest repeatable unit. So kind of do something the same every day over the course of this week, like your morning pages or, deep breathing for 10 minutes a day at the same time of the day. Just getting into that consistency of like fortifying the boundaries so that you feel like you have a place to return to as things start to spark out. And that simplification, that boundary creation, that reverence for limitations can really help you to allow that the seed, the spark of new beginnings, that kind of unpredictable contraction that's going to come. It can help you notice that, oh, there it is. Oh, wow, that's scary and also exciting because something new is coming. Like this baby's going to be born. And you know that there's like labor ahead and the birth canal and all the shit. It's not an easy road per se, but it's also like, holy, this is amazing. There's something coming. There's something new and fresh on its way. And so by having that safety paired with the inspiration of new beginnings, you can allow that seed to sprout and kind of ask yourself in all of this, like what do you think that that could lead to? I didn't want to like know exactly what my baby looked like or what she would be like on the other end. I didn't try to predict that too concretely, but at the same time, I was really fun to imagine, to use this time of the inevitability of the new coming to really allow yourself to imagine, like draw pictures, make a vision board, to like really get into like what would I love to raise in this new world? What can I imagine the better world that we all know is possible to look like? So there we have it. That is the next couple of weeks here from the new moon with all of this gate 60 activation into the plutonic Aquarian activations of the coming weeks, and then off to the races in February. There's a lot more coming as well. And so thank you so much for being here and letting me connect these dots for you that have been incubating in my container, in my mind, and it's fun to chat about it, and I'd love to hear any insights or any way that this has resonated with you or helped you feel into the current moment. And yeah, I always appreciate DMs or comments, and especially shares and likes and all of those things. Just that little click really helps me continue to be able to do this labor of love. So let me know how you're feeling. I am at livingthespiral.com is where you can find the Substack and the podcasts. The Substack, I'd say, just has more additional articles and resources. So tap into that. And also you can get reminders. But if you are on a podcast platform, give it a 5-star review. That would help me out a lot. And if you'd like to go deeper into like how all this is personally hitting your chart, my books are open for readings, and you can book human design and astrology kind of combo readings, as well as plain astrology or human design. I also do breath work where I work in your chart into a private breathwork session. So you can find my offerings at Hearth&Spiral.com, and the kind of media part at livingthespiral.com. So check it out. Thank you again. Have a beautiful, beautiful new moon, and give yourself some breath and some rest. And I'll see you soon for the new year in Gate 41.